Hi there, I'm meteorologist Corey Thompson here in the First Alert Weather Lab with some more streaming coverage of storms moving through eastern Iowa. We've joined you a couple of times here today with additional coverage of that activity. Meteorologist AJ Rickman also in the area too. He's taking a little bit of a dinner break, but we will have additional insight from him as we go forward as well. Let's just dive right into it. Right now we have that severe thunderstorm warning for portions of Keokuk, Washington, southern Johnson, and southeastern Iowa counties. This goes until 8:15 tonight. It's for the threat of 60-mile-per-hour winds as well as quarter-sized hail. We're also keeping an eye on the chance for another area of storm activity that is moving in from the south. At this point, it does look like this will stay just to the west of the TV9 viewing area, potentially. It's going to be close. Could come up toward the Ottumwa area. There is a severe thunderstorm warning for far southern Iowa. That does include that. But the one that does include more of our area is here in eastern Iowa, far southern Johnson County as well as northern Washington County. Washington, that storm is very close to you. And additional storms between you and Sigourney likely to provide some additional heavy rain, if not some lightning, as well as plenty of potential wind and quarter-sized hail. We've had several reports of hail so far today, and won't be surprised to see more to come. That was the main threat today as we were preparing for today, but the risk for some damaging winds and maybe even a tornado or two still with us. But this storm, at this point, not exhibiting any signs of tornadic activity. Instead, we just have that chance for some strong to severe storms. And it's that big warning box. National Weather Service saw the activity pick up, and they went with that warning. Plenty of lightning in these storms as well. Rainfall has been heavy. Of course, that comes with a lot of storms that we see throughout the spring and summer season, but this has been a hallmark of the activity we've seen today. A couple areas to watch. We've got two distinct areas of development. This is the cell that's out here out ahead of it. Washington County getting involved there. You can see that storm. And then we also have the secondary storm or combination of a handful of storms there in western Washington County. That is also moving through. So let's put this in a loop. And it'll show you that that first storm is kind of out on its own. The second storm's right behind it. And they will likely merge here within the next half an hour or something. But those will be what we're watching. One area that we're going to keep an eye on doesn't look imminent at this time, but there is some very light rotation in this storm near the Washington area. So I have something to keep an eye on at this point. I'm going to go ahead and get our Washington City Cam dialed in and see if we can see something from far away. Washington is experiencing heavy rain and wind right now based on the look on our City Cam. You'll have to take my word for it. I will be pulling it up here in just a moment. Yep, there we go. There is the view from our Washington City Cam. Again, bear with me as I adjust the view to get different looks here. It is pretty windy in the Washington area right now. So we are getting that, certainly the heavy rain as well. Just watching this picture for a moment, seeing the storms moving into Washington, or very near Washington at this point. Again, it was that two cells, one that has perhaps the best chance to produce some hail. It is producing quite a bit of a wind gust with it as well, and keeping an eye on it. If you're joining us on the YouTube stream, thanks for joining us there. You can, of course, interact with us there. We will try to speak to you as much as we can. Michael says no rain in Iowa City yet. That probably will be changing soon if it hasn't already. But another comment, say where the city cams are pointed. No, that's a good point. I agree with that too. And I was actually just about to go look and see exactly which way we were directed. We do have the ability to display that, something that we don't utilize as much as we can. Initially, we were actually looking to the south. We're looking a little bit more north of west at this point, but it's going to take a second for the orientation to refresh. That will know exactly what we've got cooking here in terms of Washington. You can see the rain has really backed off a bit in the Washington area. I'm going to go ahead and point it a little more to the right here. Flashes of lightning in the Washington area too. And still some pretty gusty wind. So seeing plenty of that.
And the fortunate thing with the storm here, it looks like the worst of the hail core is supposed to pass just north of Washington, if I'm seeing that correctly.
Yes, that does appear true. Welcome, AJ. Do you have your microphone on?
Yes, got my microphone on and dialed up. Hopefully everyone can hear me properly.
Yeah, it looks like it. I just want to make sure.
Absolutely. Joining here a little bit later, but yeah, been keeping an eye on the storm. Corey, again, joined you, and I've now kind of followed up and joined him, but we're both keeping an eye on it. Of course, Corey, you're keeping an eye on the YouTube chat as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, anything you're seeing in particular, AJ? I know you've got your look here on pinpoint Doppler radar. If you want to switch to yours, we can take a look at that.
So currently got a really close-in look at this storm and what's going on with it right now. I'll kind of zoom out so we can get an idea on where this cell is headed and where the heaviest part of it is tracking. So it's moving off to the east-northeast, looking to log in here and get an exact storm speed on it, but the overall track for these storms today, the speed of them hasn't been terribly fast. I've been seeing most storms tracking about 30 miles an hour. But overall, again, looks like the worst of the hail core should pass just to the north side of Washington, but still, for areas that are north of Washington, kind of take this up to where we're looking right now. Heaviest rain and looks like the largest hail right now, right to the east of Prairie Flower School, Orange Avenue. You guys are currently seeing the heaviest of that rain and hail. It's going to be moving off towards 170th Street near over by Riverside Drive as well. It'll be moving just to the south of Richmond and then up towards the intersection of would be 150th Street and Redwood Avenue here over the next couple of minutes. So again, that's kind of the part of the storm that's going to have your heaviest rain, your largest hail. That's those deep purples that you can see there that are sitting just due north of Washington right now. And again, that is with the storm that has been tracking off to the northeast and will continue to do so over the next several minutes. Some gusty winds in there as well. Of course, Corey was showing a pretty good city cam pic from Washington just a second ago.
Yep. And we do have some radar indication, at least, of some of the gustier winds. That was part of what prompted the National Weather Service to issue this warning. It's this area that's in blue. So when you get on, at least our radar display here at KCRG, pinpoint Doppler radar, when you get into those blue colors, that's when you start to talk 55 miles per hour plus. Now, when we're this far away from the radar, this is from the Quad Cities radar, so it's over in Davenport, near the Davenport Airport. You're about a mile up in the sky. So a mile up, obviously, is pretty far off the ground. Not all of that wind is always going to reach the ground with that storm. Unfortunately, that's as close as we can get, just because of the nature of the radar. But we're also watching this area of that lead cell that AJ was talking about. It's rotating a little bit, and now rotating storms don't always produce tornadic activity. That is not a guarantee when storms are rotating. It just means that it is a supercell thunderstorm. But we're keeping an eye on this low-level wind based on our velocity view and whether or not it would evolve into something that could produce a tornado. And as we speak, they did update the severe thunderstorm warning to add that thing you see on your screen right now that says threat tornado possible. And so they tend to agree with us at the National Weather Service as we speak. And so it is a little bit troublesome. Again, not imminent. This is not tight rotation in this storm, but it's there. And in the meantime, until it does at least perhaps combine with the other storms to the west, the folks at the National Weather Service are going to keep an eye on it. AJ, you've got the traditional radar view, and it's kind of got that shape to it a little bit as well in terms of what you would look at for a storm, an individual storm that could produce rotation.
It does, and what you're looking for is kind of that little appendage that's dipping off the south side of the storm here, and that is what we would refer to as a hook echo, but you can kind of start to see that trying to form right around there, and that's about the same spot, whereas we briefly switch over to our velocity look. That's about the same spot where you're seeing a lot of that, well, at what about a radar scan ago was a lot of red and green. Now that red area has, that'd be this area right here would be your wind blowing away from the radar. So at this point, it looks like the rotation is fairly broad, not seeing much of an indication that at this point it's tightening. At this point, we're not seeing much indication of it imminently producing a tornado, at least from what we're seeing on radar. Take a quick look at our debris detection, and yeah, about like you'd expect, we're not really seeing any evidence there of this storm wafting any debris. So what that would tell me at this point is that yes, like we've talked about, this storm is rotating, and that's why you have that tornado possible tag associated with it, the National Weather Service having just recently updated that. But again, while the storm is rotating at this point, there is not a tornado warning for it. It's just the severe thunderstorm warning. So it's just something that at this point the National Weather Service is keeping an eye on, and of course we're keeping a close eye on it as well. Again, the latest radar scan continues to show that little appendage, that hook, a little bit of a hook that's trying to form there just to the west of 218. That's dipping kind of south of this cell that's kind of embedded in this larger line of storms. But again, right in there, if this storm were to try and produce a tornado, right in here would be that spot where you would be most concerned with that. Recent look at the warning does look like this storm's moving off at about 45 miles an hour, I believe is what I saw.
I think that was the last one, yeah.
Okay, so last update, 45 miles an hour. I'll put a storm track on this really quickly and just show you where the rotating part of this storm is moving and where we would expect it to track off to over the next hour or so. So currently it is in Washington County. It's tracking off to the east-northeast, and as it continues to do so, we'll see that moving off in this general direction, which over the next 45 minutes or so will take it towards Conesville by 7:46, Nichols by 7:52, Muscatine Hospital, you'll be seeing the storm arrive there, or the rotating part of that storm, by 8 o'clock, Power Plant by 8:07, Muscatine by 8:08, and then Wilton by the time we get to 8:15. But again, this is, keep in mind, this storm, it's currently under a severe thunderstorm warning, and that's going to be for hail that's quarter-sized and 60-mile-an-hour winds. So we'll go ahead and put a storm track on the northern, a little farther north, and that's going to be the part of the storm that contains that hail and gusty wind threat. So as we take a look at this portion of it and get an idea on where it's going to be tracking, again, what we'll do is pull it out to about the next 45 minutes. That hail, the part of the storm that would contain those larger hailstones, going to be tracking towards Iowa Township Park by 7:32, Lone Tree by 7:42, Wapsie Park by 7:55, West Liberty by the time we get to 7:55, and Moscow by the time we get to 8:06. So again, this storm, primary threat right now is that severe wind and hail threat. But again, they do have that tornado tag that is on there for that little bit of rotation.
Yeah, for sure. And like you were just tracking, it's that area of the storm That's now in northeastern Washington County, but it would have the potential. The warnings for quarter-sized hail, our radar is detecting the potential maybe up to $half size, which is just a little bit bigger. And that has been somewhat of an increase over the last little while. We'll put this on a loop, and it sort of shows as the storm has strengthened within the last little bit. It certainly is a fairly organized little storm. You can see off to the west that other batch of precipitation behind it, not necessarily the sort of hail-producing signature on radar. It's that individual storm out ahead of it that's got the better shot at that. So at this point, you've got areas here in northeastern Washington County that's going to cross over into Louisa County. Just like you said, AJ, portions of southern Johnson County, that extended area on the southeast side, probably staying south of Lone Tree, I would say, probably. It's going to be a close call. So if you live down there, Gladwin would be more involved, Conesville, like you said. But Kelowna, Riverside may miss out on some of the hail with this storm. So that would be good news for the folks down there. No additional updates from the National Weather Service. I keep hearing the dinging. So that is our chat with the National Weather Service. It says, from Ariane in the YouTube chat, she asks, what can we expect for Tipton? Let's take a look, a little bit of a wider view. Tipton, of course, right in the heart of Cedar County. This storm is probably the storm we've been talking about in northern Washington County. It does look like it's probably going to stay a little south of Tipton. It's moving more toward the Muscatine County area, over toward the Quad Cities. Tipton, though, you're going to get involved in this heavier rain that could have a little bit of gusty wind for it, too. So let's give you a brief preview of that. This is, again, a non-severe portion of the storm. But as it goes into Cedar County, it'll be getting closer to Stanwood at about 738, Tipton closer to 748. So that is potentially, again, downpours, lightning, maybe a little bit of small hail, but that portion of the storm just doesn't look quite as intense. So that's the good news there. Still, though, of course, tracking and joining you because of the threat of severe weather, and the storm that we're watching primarily is down in Washington County. So far, we're starting to see these storms begin to merge. Notice, let me take you back an hour. And we're going to look down here southwest. This is what turns into the storm in Washington County. This is sort of the back part. And as we go forward here, notice that the storm that's out ahead, still staying ahead, but still some separation. And now we go to real time. Yeah, it's starting to get kind of caught up by that storm behind it. This can cause things to change one way or another. I know that's not a great answer, but sometimes it can weaken a storm, it can disrupt it. Sometimes it can temporarily disrupt it, but then it gets more organized afterwards. And sometimes it has little to no effect. Wish we could say with certainty that we know absolutely what's going to happen before it happens in these cases. There's a lot of research being done about this stuff. I've seen some of the work already about something they call one storm nudges the original storm. That's the term they use to
very technical.
Yeah, I know, right? To push it from something that's maybe showing some supercell characteristics or rotation, and sort of pushes it over the cliff and makes it produce a tornado. So far, not seeing that here. Let's keep that going.
Absolutely, it'd be, great thing for anyone in the path of this storm to see it continue to, at worst maintain its strength, at best weaken a bit. One thing that would kind of, if I'm looking at this storm trying to get an idea on what could happen to it, one thing I would kind of key in on is that as we kind of look at it and look off to the south of this little appendage area, that again, as a reminder, this spot here would be that area of concern that has the rotation with it and why they have the rotation possible tag. Mm-hmm. Again, a lot going on with this storm at this point with it kind of merging and getting interfered with by this line, but there's not really anything south of it. So kind of wide open air here, which means that with the southerly winds we've had today, storm's getting a pretty steady feed of warm and moist air. So that would be one thing to keep in mind with this storm is there would be reasons for it to weaken with the interactions with this line that's behind it, or it could potentially have the fuel source and that, again, open flow of southerly air going into it to potentially give it the ability to maintain its strength, if not get a little bit stronger. So, again, one of those where, like you said, Corey, it can be a frustrating answer for those who want to know exactly what's going to happen with this storm. where sometimes it gets stronger, sometimes it gets weaker, and sometimes nothing happens. But that's why we're here. That's why we are on. That's why we are streaming this, so that we can keep you up to date with the latest information as we are witnessing it, and kind of talk with you through it and answer as many questions as we can along the way.
Yep, for sure. That's absolutely the idea. And Caleb in the YouTube chat asks, what about Colesburg on storms on Friday? And so Colesburg is one of those spots that has been getting a lot of rain the past couple of days. In fact, they're just on the edge of a flash flood warning that goes until 11:15 this evening. They are getting out of the rain now, which is good. And hopefully we can kind of cut off some of that rain. It's part of a sort of handful of flash flood warnings that are in those areas in Benton, Northern Lynn, down into Buchanan, Delaware, Jones, Dubuque, Jackson, over toward Joe Davies counties. These are all the areas that have seen a lot of rain the past couple of days, and just piling more rain on top of that. Now, luckily, it does look like stuff tonight is beginning to move on. And so we are hopeful that we can get them dried out a little bit. Tomorrow's going to be dry too. And so hopefully we can drain away some of that rain that has fallen. However, Friday does bring back that chance. Now, it does look like at this point that Friday's rain will be relatively moving. I don't know, that's kind of a weak way to put it, but it's going to move through. It's not going to necessarily sort of repeat like we have been seeing today. And so we're, again, hopeful that that will be the case. Let's take a look at rain. So this is going to include some of the rain that we've seen today, as well as what we can expect on Friday. So that's the precipitation potential for the next 3 days. And again, includes some of what's taking place today. So subtract, in many cases here, at least ½ inch from this. And so you'd be talking about maybe another ½ inch to an inch. Of course, it all depends on where storms go. Storms obviously are the stuff that produces the heaviest rain for us here in eastern Iowa. And so it's really going to be dependent on that exact track, which is hard to pin down exactly. But it does look like everybody in terms of eastern Iowa has at least a decent shot at seeing some more storms on Friday. Something we can expand upon a little bit here. But we're watching storms tonight first. AJ, what are you looking at?
So right now there was, looks like there was a mention in the chat of a storm chaser has a tornado coming down on this. So I'm taking a close look at this storm right now that has the severe thunderstorm warning on it. At this point, at least from our perspective here on radar, and of course we've been keeping a very close eye on the storm as it's moved through, your area of rotation is going to be just right around Gladwin. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly.
Yep, you nailed it.
Awesome. So Gladwin, if you guys are in that area, you'll want to get to your safe space with this storm. Again, at this point, no official report of the storm producing a tornado. And keep in mind, still just under a severe thunderstorm warning. It does have the tornado possible tag, so we're taking a little bit of time to pay some extra attention to that area of rotation. But with this storm as it's moving through, whether you're in the path of the area of rotation that, again, at this point, no definitive evidence of a tornado on the ground, but certainly rotating. So treat it as if it were tornado warned. Play it safe. It's always best to do that. Go ahead, get to your safe space if you're in the path of this storm, especially if you are included in the severe thunderstorm warning. It has quarter-sized hail, 60-mile-an-hour winds, and is certainly a storm that you're going to want to take seriously and make sure that you are getting out of the way of it. Getting indoors, best place is going to be basement. If you have it, that's ideal. Otherwise, lowest level of your home, whether it be a bathroom or an interior closet or room. Now with this stronger severe cell, go ahead and throw a storm track on it and just kind of guide us out here for about the next 40 minutes or so. We are going to see it moving towards Nichols by 7:53, West Liberty by 7:58, Wapsie Park by 7:59, and then over towards Moscow by the time we get to 8:10. So again, that's with this storm that is currently producing hail and damaging winds. So you'll want to make sure that you are getting out of the way of it, and again, getting down to your safe space wherever that may be for you. So this is a storm that, of course, is part of a larger line of storms that we've been tracking across eastern Iowa as we've gone through the afternoon and evening. You can see right now the heaviest of that activity currently pushing down towards portions of southern Jones, northern Cedar County, now getting into Jackson and then before long pushing into Clinton and then Scott counties. Areas behind this line, for the most part, your severe threat would be winding down after this main line of storms comes through. An isolated shower or rumble of thunder can't be ruled out as we go through the evening. But again, once this main line comes through, at this point, what development we've seen behind it has been somewhat limited. There's a storm out near Carroll that you can see outside of our viewing area, and some showers off to the north of Waterloo. But again, the reason we are here with you right now is this severe warned storm that right now there's a severe thunderstorm warning for Johnson, Keokuk, Washington, and Iowa counties. This is for a severe thunderstorm where the primary threats are going to be damaging wind and large hail. The tornado possible tag that is associated with this storm is because there is a little bit of rotation with it, and that is why the National Weather Service has put that tag on there. But at this point, again, there has not been radar confirmation of a tornado on the ground, which is why, or part of the reason why there's not a tornado warning on this storm. Still a storm you want to take seriously, though. Again, we'll take another look at that rotating area of this system that, again, at this point, your area of rotation would be right near Cotter. And again, at this point, there's a little bit of rotation. It doesn't look particularly strong at this point. But again, if you're in the path of this storm, still best to play it safe and go ahead and just get out of the way of it. So again, that's the area of concern in the storm right here, again, right up there. And this cell is, at this point, to me, looks like it's kind of starting to get interfered with and perhaps partially ingested into this larger line of storms that's been moving through. Like we talked about, potentially good news. Could lead to that storm weakening a bit, especially if it were to really merge and blend in with this larger line of storms. But again, still plenty of activity, and even if the storm were to weaken, still a line of storms that you'd want to take seriously. Make sure you're getting out of the way of it as it approaches your area.
Yep, I'd say that's a pretty good call. Excellent look at all the stuff, AJ. We've got that one severe thunderstorm warning out there. That is in the southern portion of the TV9 viewing area. Strongest storm south of Interstate 80. More storms taking place north of there too, but just severe weather at this point. Although the tornado watch continues in more places, it's just more focusing toward the southern portion, southeastern Iowa at this point, as we lose some of that focus, some of that energy in other parts. Now, it doesn't mean that we're done with storms for the rest of the night. But there is still that focus again, Johnson, Washington, moving into Louisa County and Muscatine County like you were just tracking, that more significant storm area. But luckily at this point, that rotation that we've been watching, or at least the minor rotation, it's stayed minor. Yeah.
Been certainly a good thing for any folks that are in the path of that storm. And the thing with storms is a lot of times when you have these situations, all supercells rotate. The definition of a supercell is a rotating thunderstorm, or a thunderstorm that has a rotating updraft. So just because that storm is rotating doesn't mean it's going to produce a tornado. Lots of storms rotate without producing tornadoes. But even if that storm's rotating, there's still that damaging wind and hail threat. So regardless of whether or not there's a tornado, still something that should always be taken seriously.
Yep, for sure. A couple of questions in the YouTube chat asking about Iowa City. Iowa City is included in this warning, but really, honestly, outside of some gusty wind potential, when you have these heavier thunderstorms, the hail potential looks like it'll stay to your south. We'll turn on our hail tracker. Yeah, maybe some small hail mixed in there, but the bigger hail core, which we were showing you earlier, stays to the south, and even that has dissipated a little bit. It's possible that the storm deposited its hail in northeastern Washington County, and then generally has moved on. There was a report of some quarter-sized hail near Riverside, according to the National Weather Service, so it did come close to Riverside, probably just southeast of there, I would guess. Riverside, well, depends on how our hail detector, how accurate it is. And yeah, there's a possibility. Yeah, I'd have to say it's probably a little bit southeast of Riverside, but of course, we're talking pretty rural portions of Washington County in that Highway 218 area. So if your mailing address for sure would be Riverside in that area, yeah. I'd have to say. But Iowa City, heavy rain, lightning, but the severe weather threat, again, is a little bit more marginal in the northern side this morning. It really is more this cluster of stuff taking place in the southern portion of the warning. I'd say if you're in southeastern Iowa County, which barely clips that area, you're out of the woods. Southwestern Johnson County, you're really getting out of it too. But the areas of Washington County and Loiza County in particular is the spot that we're watching. Still, again, plenty of lightning, most lightning down toward that corner between Johnson and Loiza counties, right, where the two counties meet there, those two sort of extended parts of the counties.
Yep, and we're, again, continuing to see that activity move through, and that's part of what's really been a very active week of weather overall. And of course, tonight, just one more chapter in that book, if you want to call it that.
Yeah, I might call it hyperactive, frankly. Yeah. It's been quite a week. Sometimes you'll go through an entire month here in eastern Iowa and not have this many days with severe weather threats. So it has been a week for sure. And like we've been talking about, we're not done.
Yep, we've got one more round coming up Friday. Of course, we're going to continue to keep an eye on this round of activity as we go through the rest of the night tonight. But we're going to take a brief minute to, as I get set up here, have a look at that threat for Friday, just to kind of look ahead and get everybody mentally prepared for what's coming down the way next. So again, if you've got any plans going on for Thursday, at this point, looks to be in pretty good shape. Thursday looking at mostly sunny skies, temperatures in the 70s and 80s. So tomorrow, a good day for a break from having to be hyper-focused on the weather. But as we get into Friday, here's a look at the latest outlook from the Storm Prediction Center. Does have just about all of eastern Iowa under an enhanced risk for strong to severe storms. Primary threats there going to once again be damaging wind, large hail, and that threat for some tornadoes as well as that activity moves through. Current timing takes it through similar to what we saw yesterday and what we've seen today during the afternoon and evening. In fact, the start of your day Friday at this point does look fairly dry and quiet as well. But again, what's going to be triggering these storms on Friday is the arrival of a cold front. As that cold front pushes through, we're going to watch for showers and storms to pop up and develop along it. And then once that front pushes through, we're going to say goodbye to severe weather, at least through the weekend and into the start of next week. It'll be just a little bit quieter. And again, we can get a little bit of a breather after what really has been an extremely active week.
Looks like that breather hopefully will last a while, frankly. If we look further into the future and sort of getting toward the end of the 9-day forecast and beyond, the chances just kind of don't look that great for additional severe weather at this point. They're originally, we look at all the computer data, right? We use computer models to help make our forecasts, and we use a bunch of different tools and analysis and information for all of this. Mm-hmm. And some of the original looks at those longer range models suggested maybe more active weather next week, but it's sort of trended away from that. It's trended a little cooler. Still some rain potentially by later next week, but not the same type of environment, the somewhat muggy weather we've seen this week.
Yeah, very different, a lot less summer-like, and as a good reality check, a lot closer to what we should have at this time of year.
Yeah.
I mean, average high temperatures, typically normal high this time of year is 60, normal low is 37. Yep. So very summer-like, very warm. This is much more reminiscent of what you should see like end of May, beginning of June across eastern Iowa. So certainly been a bit of a, for those who like warm weather, a bit of a early false taste of summer, you could even call it. I wouldn't even call it a full spring. I'd call it a full summer. But it's, again, been very active, very stormy because of that. But we'll take just a brief second to kind of look at your 9-day forecast, because once we get past this severe threat on Friday, you're going to have to turn your attention, especially if you have any outdoor plants at this point, maybe some house plants you've moved outside to take advantage of the warm weather. You're going to have to move them back inside for a couple nights. We have the potential for frost Saturday and Sunday night, which again, oftentimes you see it in eastern Iowa, where you can go from severe weather on Friday to cold, and I've even seen it in some cases snow on Sunday. So we're not getting snow at this point. It is going to be dry through the weekend, but a little bit cooler as well. So you are certainly going to want to make sure that you are prepared for that, getting ready for that cold front to come through. Again, that cold front is what brings us those storms Friday afternoon and evening, but it's also what brings our lows down to 39 for your Friday night, and then again, those cooler conditions for your Saturday and Sunday. Cooler than average, but you can also see it's not too long before those temperatures are jumping right back above normal again by the time we get to next week.
Yep, that is the ups and downs of spring for sure, and we have been in more or less a pattern that's favored warmer weather for a long time. So it's not too much surprise that things look fairly active. Let's take a wide view of pinpoint Doppler radar around the state first. So while we do have this main clump and complex of thunderstorms sort of organizing or evolving here in eastern Iowa, there are other areas that are taking shape across central Iowa, individual storms that one is severe southwest of Fort Dodge, others are just producing heavy rain, maybe some small hail with them too. But in terms of what we can expect for the rest of the night, that is what we're watching beyond this first area of storms. We could see some additional storm activity. Now, behind the first round, the chance for severe weather is going to be a little bit lower, but at this point, it does look like the chance is still not zero. All right, new severe thunderstorm warning includes portions of Cedar, Muscatine, Rock Island, and Scott counties. So this gets us over toward the Quad Cities, but it also does include counties that we are responsible for on KCRG TV9. So we're gonna pause for a second for our streamer coverage, join our KCRG TV9 viewers, and then we'll be right back with additional coverage. Hi, John. We need to go on TV9 again for a second. All right, thanks. Yep. I'm First Alert meteorologist Corey Thompson here in the TV9 Weather Lab with an update on a severe thunderstorm warning that's been issued for portions of Cedar, Muscatine, far northern Eliza, and then we get into Scott County as well. This goes until 8:45 tonight. The main threats with these storms are 60-mile-per-hour winds and quarter-sized hail, of which there was a report back toward the Washington Riverside area in Washington County. So these storms have had the history of producing some hail earlier, but there's also some minor rotation in some of these storms, and thus the National Weather Service says while not imminent, there could be an evolution of this storm that involves the development of tornadic activity. Still, no tornado warning at this point. They're just watching very closely. A loop of pinpoint Doppler radar shows that activity is generally moving off to the east. It's southern Cedar County that is primarily involved here, and that is the area generally south of Tipton. Tipton not technically included in this warning as it includes just areas to your south. Storms are moving at about 30 miles per hour, and so we'll go ahead and put on a storm track to let you know where things are headed over the next little while as this warning continues for just under an hour. In terms of the heaviest storms, we'll take these off to the east, and it's a little bit slightly north of east. So Lime City, you'll be closer to about 758 Moscow, which is in Muscatine County, just after 8 o'clock. And then we also have areas toward Durant and Walcott as we get toward about 8:19, and then Walcott at 8:35, and then things move off deeper into Scott County. Again, 60-mile-per-hour winds and quarter-sized hail. Now there still is a severe thunderstorm warning back here for portions of Johnson and Washington, Keokuk, and southeastern Iowa counties. This goes for a few more minutes till 8:15. The heaviest storms have moved out of the area, but not totally out of the woods yet, especially for perhaps some gustier winds. Otherwise, there is a tornado watch that continues until later this evening, just for another hour or so. It's for areas near and south of Highway 30. A few counties have been removed. Large hail and maybe an isolated tornado still not fully ruled out as we go through the night. But repeating, a new severe thunderstorm watch for southern Cedar County in particular. This goes until 8:45 as storms roll through eastern Iowa. We'll be keeping an eye on things here in the TV9 Weather Lab. If you'd like to join us for additional weather coverage, you can find it on our streaming platforms, KCRG.com, the KCRG News app, both on your mobile devices and your smart TVs, as well as streaming on our YouTube channel. Stay with your trusted local news source, KCRG TV9. All right, we are back with you on streaming for additional coverage of storms as they move through. That new warning, again, southern Cedar, Muscatine into Scott County, including the Quad Cities, or at least areas west of Interstate 74. We are still trying to keep an eye on small areas of rotation. I know, AJ, you've been looking at stuff off screen as well while I was handling that. Let's take a look at some of this velocity data. And you can see there was a brief period And it's hard to say for sure, but there was a brief period where there was some pretty close rotation just south of Conesville, west of Letts. Again, this was right around the time they were issuing that new warning. So I'm sure the National Weather Service was seeing exactly what we were seeing too, but they decided to go with the severe thunderstorm warning. No reports of tornadic activity in there, but it caught my eye for sure. And you can see as we get further along the line here, excuse me, clicked a little too fast. Further along the line, it's not as evident, but it could just be brief little areas that spin up potentially very quickly. Also keeping an eye on one that is up here as we pan slowly, sort of north of Atalissa. Yeah, well, it's again, pretty vague, not imminent, but it would be right along this other portion of another storm that's in southern Cedar County. And the Weather Service kind of issued that warning across a broad area to account for multiple storms. It's not really necessarily one storm that they're warning for here.
Yeah, and like you said, it's, again, these storms, the way that they're set up, they're not producing, the rotation that is with them has not led to anything that has produced radar confirmation of a tornado. There have been spotter reports of wall clouds within these cells as they've moved along. And again, we've seen it on radar here on our end too, where we've gotten where we've had little areas of rotation spin up. This cell that we're keeping an eye on that is currently moving towards Letts has had a bit of an appendage on it, or this little bit of a hook right here. It's had it off and on for the last 15, 20 minutes or so. And as it continues to move off, that would be one of the areas that we are concerned about. Almost looks like there's maybe a little bit of another little hook trying to form there, but kind of along this area here, that's the general spot where you would watch for that rotation to occur. And again, that kind of looks like it's where we're seeing that problematic area where you have some of that rotation right over Cranston right now, just to the north of Letts. And that's with this system that, again, isn't officially tornado warned, but has rotation with it. And again, seen some reports of wall clouds within this cell as it has kind of moved on.
Yep, and that's exactly what the National Weather Service is watching too. They said the reasoning behind their severe thunderstorm warning choice here when they made the warning decision for the new warning here is that there have been little areas of rotation that they've identified just like we have. However, they have been short-lived and frequently get disrupted as the heavier rain arrives in short order. So they haven't lasted long. There is the possibility, though, that within this warning that there could be a very brief spin-up of a weak tornado. It's not really the type of environment or storm structure that would necessarily produce long-lasting tornadic activity. And again, that's part of the reason why they're keeping it as a severe thunderstorm warning instead of going with a tornado warning in these cases. They got to make the decisions, and that was their choice, at least at this point.
And of course, good news for folks who are in the path of those storms that it's not producing anything long-lived or sustained, but still a situation you need to take it seriously. If you are in the path of this warning, go ahead and get to your safe space. Treat it like a tornado warning, just out of an abundance of caution. Get down to your safe space. Basements are, of course, ideal if you have them, but if you don't have a basement, lowest level of your home, getting as many walls between you and the outside as you can. So that would be away from windows. Bathrooms are great options. Closets are great options. And of course, bringing your mobile device with you so that you can keep tabs with where the storm is, where it's located. Just keep us on streaming, and we'll, of course, walk you through it as these storms continue to move through eastern Iowa.
So far today, things, I haven't actually looked at this lately, so we're going to kind of learn together in terms of where our storm reports stand for this afternoon. Hail, again, has been the primary stuff, same like yesterday. I think when I went on the air at 10 o'clock in the newscast last night, we had just about 90 severe weather reports in total, and 73 of them were hail or something like that. Wow. Right, it's all hail at this point. And some of the more recent ones perhaps down toward the Iowa City and Riverside area. So let's just take a look together at some of them. This was in North Liberty at 7:05, so that's pea-sized hail, just a few tenths of an inch in diameter. No damage expected in those, but Riverside had that quarter-sized hail, which can dent your car and do other minor areas of damage. So that is a little bit different. That's why that warning's been continuing for areas to the northeast. The bigger hail of the day was reported near and west of Tama. We had that storm that really sort of intensified over the eastern portion of Marshall County into western Tama County. So LeGrand had a 1-inch diameter hail report, but as you get toward Tama, Toledo, we had some photographs from the Meskwaki settlement of some pretty large hail. This has Montour with a golf ball sized hail report, as well as Toledo with a 2-inch diameter hail report. So that is hefty as well. Belle Plaine, though, not that far away. Just talking pea-sized hail again. So it really depends where you've been and where the storms have been tracking. But again, in terms of total reports today, far fewer if we highlight just the TV9 viewing area, and this includes up in southwest Wisconsin where they've had a few more storms today too, more hail. Only 24 reports. So that's a quarter of what we've seen compared to yesterday. So that is the case. We've got a report from one of our chatters in the YouTube chat. They said sirens are going off in Muscatine County. I assume that's probably based, AJ, on same stuff that we've been talking about, the potential rotation. We don't have any reports at this point. Let's see what the Weather Service. It looks like they're starting to see maybe a little bit more rotation. So we're going to have to keep an eye on that.
Yep, looks like they're getting ready to issue, from what it looks like, they're getting ready to issue a tornado warning for southwest of the Quad Cities. Mm-hmm. So that would, again, kind of indicate that the rotation is starting to at least become favorable in such a way where you would need the National Weather Service is looking to issue that tornado warning. So again, there it is, right over there, Letts and Fruitland. So this is, let's see, tornado warning in effect for Louisa, Mercer, Muscatine, Rock Island counties, and that is going to be in effect until 8:30 tonight, and that is for an observed tornado. So there has been a report of a tornado on the ground. So again, that's, if you're in the path of this storm, we've been telling you to treat it like it's tornado warned. It is now tornado warned for a tornado that is on the ground. So looks like, let's get a look at the rotation here and see exactly where that's going to be located. Looks to me just to the east of Letts, just to the southwest of Fruitland. That is going to be, looks like where that area of rotation is, and that does coincide pretty well with where that southward facing appendage would be, again, just off to the east of Letts and Fruitland. So as the storm continues to track off to the east, let's get a storm track on that. Corey, you've got that there.
Yeah, let's take a look. It is, again, moving through largely rural areas, but it's going to pass near the Muscatine Airport at about 8:08. So just a few minutes away. Fruitland at 8:09 toward the Drury area, which I believe we're crossing over into Illinois by that point. But yeah, the report came from a sheriff's deputy or a law enforcement of some variety. And so they are watching that. It's also got the potential for ping pong ball sized hail within that warning. Again, the rotation on radar is subtle, but it's there. And so with that ground truth, which we're going to look at, yeah, just looking at some of the new information off the screen here. Some new reports, yeah, circulation in the area and some reports. So yeah, Muscatine, the city itself, is included in this warning. At this point, it does look like the most dangerous portion of the storm may pass just to your south, but we'd rather play it safe than play it sorry. And so that is something to watch out for in Muscatine as well. Should be, if you're joining us from there, should be in your area of safety. That would be the best bet.
Definitely. And even if you're not in the path of the rotating part of this storm, keep in mind there is also a severe thunderstorm warning that encompasses the larger portion of this cell. That is for the hail and wind threat that is associated with this storm. So currently south of West Liberty looks to be where the heaviest rain and largest hail is within this storm. That looks like it'll pass just to the north of Muscatine as this storm continues to track off to the east and northeast. So we'll take that part of the storm, put a track on it, and get a gauge on where it's going to be going over the next 40 minutes or so. But the part of the storm that is apt to give you your largest hail, looking to move towards Salisbury Bridge Recreation Area by 8:07, Discovery Park by 8:13, Kent Stein Park by 8:20, Sweetland Center by 8:26, and then moving off towards Pleasant Prairie by the time we get to 8:37. And again, that's for the section of this supercell that would produce your ping pong ball sized hail, as well as your damaging straight line winds. Again, there's that tornado warning that is on there as well, that it is in effect until 8:30.
Yep, that is the case. And you can kind of see maybe a little bit of the rotation in that area between Letts and Fruitland. So folks in Fruitland or areas moving along right between Fruitland and Muscatine, that would be Highway 61. If you live anywhere near that area between those two cities, that's where the rotation is located. Again, it's relatively broad, but we do have those reports of at least a brief tornado touchdown. Working on getting some more information from one of our sister stations, KWQC. They maybe had some report of some damage associated, but they didn't give a lot of details. So we're gonna wait for more information for that in terms of what exactly took place. Do want to point out that one area we had before, it's kind of still tracking along the Muscatine-Cedar County road, or not Cedar County Road, but Muscatine and Cedar County with this area of perhaps minor rotation near Wilton. Cedar County, you still have that severe thunderstorm warning for the potential of gusty winds to 60 miles per hour and quarter-sized hail, but any sort of tornadic potential, at this point it does look like it's going to stay outside of your area, which is, of course, good news. But the most dangerous part of the storm way down in Muscatine County instead, as you've been tracking, AJ.
Yep, and again, continuing to watch the storm as it continues to move off. Right there to the southwest of Fruitland currently is where we're keeping an eye on that area of the storm that would produce that tornado and has that rotation. There you go, your reds and your greens just to the southwest of Fruitland. That's going to be your area of concern and your problem spot for wanting to watch out for where this storm is. So again, just southwest of Fruitland is where that rotation is currently located. There are reports of folks who have seen this tornado on the ground, so we already have visual confirmation of it. I've been checking to see if there's anything definitive on our debris detection, not seeing anything super defined at this point, but again, the storm is rotating. We have had reports of the storm we've had reports, again, visual confirmation of this storm having produced a tornado. So treat it as a tornado warned storm because it is, and it has a history of producing tornadoes. That again will be continuing to track off to the northeast as we go through the next half hour.
We are getting new information from Muscatine County emergency managers. New update of they saw possible rotation on the ground near south of Fruitland. So that would be exactly where you're talking about, AJ. You might need to go ahead and restart your computer. Little technical problems. They seem to follow you around sometimes.
They do. I'm known as the one in the weather lab who has the technical difficulties. I'm going to get really good at computer troubleshooting.
A little bit. So we're going to go ahead and show you a wider view here. The strongest storms are off toward the Quad Cities. That one tornado warning that's moving out of the TV9 viewing area, moving up toward the Mississippi River area, Muscatine, if you're joining us from there, or have friends or family there, just give them a message and say, hey, did you know about this? You should probably be seeking shelter. As there's the possibility there. Had a question in the YouTube chat, what's going on in Cedar Rapids? Well, Cedar Rapids, if you're looking off to the west, you're seeing clearer skies and quieter weather, but well off to the west in central Iowa, there are these little storm cells that are generally tracking east or east-northeast. They may move toward the Cedar Rapids area later tonight, so we've still got until about 9 o'clock for the most significant potential for strong to severe weather. But then we do still have the potential for some storms as we go into the night, perhaps till about midnight, 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. Not fully ruled out. It's not going to be like last night where we saw widespread thunderstorm activity kind of redevelop and produce a lot of lightning and a lot of heavy rain. Instead, we're just watching these individual cells that are out in western Iowa. A couple of warnings out that way for severe thunderstorm activity. A couple of storms that look like they're probably producing some hail. But in terms of tornadic development, that threat would be well reduced out this direction. Really, the threat for widespread thunderstorm activity is pretty well reduced too. So I wouldn't necessarily be too concerned about that. But still, something to keep an eye on, and we'll keep an eye on for for you, or rather for additional development for you as well. Of course, that's what we're here for. AJ, back on the horse again in terms of having a computer that works.
Indeed.
And now give us an update on what you're seeing.
Yeah, always nice to have a working computer when you're in a severe weather situation, so I'm glad to have that back. But we are, at this point, just kind of taking a broad view of the look across eastern Iowa. Again, you can see our southern areas along and south of Interstate 80 right now are the primary focus for that strong to severe threat. Our tornado-warned portion of the storm currently being updated by the National Weather Service, but still, that tornado warning is in effect for Louisa, Mercer, Muscatine, and Rock Island counties until about 8:30. And looks like in the last couple scans here, we're really starting to see that hook echo showing up. So now we've got some new, fresh radar data. So let's kind of take a look at this storm here. We'll take a look at the velocity in just a second. But again, our area of rotation and our area of concern going to be right there, where you're seeing that little bit of a hook trying to form in the radar velocity or the radar image. So we'll kind of take a look here and see what we're looking at in terms of the rotation within this storm. And again, let's take another look at, there we go. So as we kind of zoom in here, again, your spots, there's your area of rotation pretty clearly right there, just to the south of Fruitland, and that is going to be moving off to the east-northeast. The storm's had a motion, from what I've seen, it's about 30 miles an hour the storm's been moving at. I haven't seen any change in the speed of that. Corey, correct me if I'm wrong there.
I believe you're still on target there.
Okay, so yeah, with that in mind and that speed updated, we'll go ahead and put a storm track on the rotating part of the storm and see where it moves off to over the next 45 minutes or so. This, again, the rotating part of this storm, with this tornado-warned storm that we'd be concerned about with producing that tornado, moving towards Drury by the time we get to 8:23, Illinois City by the time we get to 8:33, Buffalo Prairie by 8:36, Edgington by 8:46, and then from that point we'll continue to track off towards Illinois. Taylor Ridge, it'll be arriving there by 8:55. But again, this is a storm that has a history of producing tornadoes. Looks like the tornado warning has been changed by the National Weather Service to now just be radar indicated.
Yeah, it does look like that. Even though we've had, like you, we've been keeping an eye on a couple of reports of possible funnel or sort of dust whirl activity with this moving near the Fruitland area. That hook that you've been sort of keeping an eye on just about to cross the Mississippi River too. So it's really going to be moving out of our area and into Illinois, perhaps and getting closer to portions of the Quad Cities on the Illinois side. But in terms of tornadic activity in Iowa, this may be the only warning that gets issued anywhere near here. Now, there was a report near Letts of some power lines down. That came at about 7:58, or it just got reported, but it was at 7:58, and a funnel cloud report. So that could be related to what we were seeing earlier on the radar. It's about that time, so can't rule that out there. New flash flood warning. Let's take a look at that as it loads up here. Just adding to the other areas that already have warnings. This goes Jackson County as well as far eastern Jones County. This goes until 2:15 in the morning. Flash flood warnings last for a long time as it takes a little while for water to recede. It's radar indicated, so that means that it's not based on reports from new information, but it is after heavy rain the last couple of days and additional heavy rain that we've seen tonight. So that is for you folks up there. If you got a notification on your phone, that's what the deal is there.
And of course, always good to get rainfall at the start of a new growing season. Won't be long before crops are going into the ground and starting to grow. So there will be no shortage of water for whether it's gardens, corn, soybeans, whatever might be going out. Plenty of water across the state for them to take advantage of, which is great. But as always, too much of a good thing can become a bad thing. Of course, those flash flood warnings are there. The ground, like you said, Corey, very saturated. I would expect when the new drought, well, today's drought monitor, no, today's Wednesday. Thursday's drought monitor day.
It is coming tomorrow.
Our new drought monitor will come out tomorrow. I would fully expect it to show little to no drought across eastern Iowa, which, again, great to have that at this time of year. But it's also going to be nice to have a dry day on Thursday, and then a dry stretch after we get to, or get beyond Friday, I should say.
Yeah, you don't want to push it too far the other direction.
Exactly.
You don't want to end up on the other side of the equation in terms of having those bad outcomes in terms of flooding. You see on your screen right now, that's the new update to the severe weather outlook from the Storm Prediction Center. So that's good news, is that they see what will likely be a decrease in activity as we get later into the night. We've shown you those scattered storms to our west, but they've removed that slight risk for much of the TV9 viewing area. It still includes the southeastern third or so, and that's because of the storms that are ongoing right now, frankly. It's not about the storms to the west. But I did want to look at one thing since we're talking water. Let's look at where our rivers stand here in terms of forecasts here in eastern Iowa. So it does look like we have some rivers that will be elevated. The Iowa River near Marengo has a flood warning. They're expecting minor flooding. And other portions of the Cedar River upstream toward Waterloo Cedar Falls, they're close to flood stage in what's called the action stage. Same along the Mississippi. The Mississippi has actually seen their river levels go up a little bit, which after being very, very low is a nice change to see. We've also got a flood warning down toward Sigourney for minor flooding again. So nothing huge. The English River in Kelowna is in the action stage now too, or will be within the forecast. So not anything severe yet, but again, don't want to push it too far that other direction because things can change in a hurry, that's for sure.
They definitely can, and of course, flooding a lot more short-term and a lot more intense damage than what a drought would give you. So in some ways that can almost make it worse, but it looks like at this point, again, we're going to be dealing with those elevated rivers, current river flood warnings in effect, and flash flood warnings to go with them. But the good news is, again, after Friday, looks like a little bit of a, not going to say totally dry stretch, but it will be drier than what we have seen recently. Give the soils and the streams all a chance to kind of recover a bit before inevitably we do get some more rainfall down the road eventually.
Yeah, that would be the good news. This warning for a tornado warning in Muscatine, Louisa County does look like that portion of the storm that we'd be worried about is in Illinois at this point.
It is. It has crossed over the Mississippi River now just to the east of Fruitland, south of Drury. But again, your area of rotation going to be right there, like we always say, where those reds and those greens are coming together. Keeping an eye on that for your area of the storm that would have that rotation and produce the tornado. Pretty close to where we're seeing, again, that sign of a little bit of that appendage, or what we would call a hook echo on radar, where you kind of see that area of red and yellow kind of sticking out there, almost like a little bit of a ball at the front of the line. So right in that spot, that's going to be where your rotation is located. And that is why they do have that tornado warning that's been issued. This storm in the past has had a history of producing some tornadoes. Looks like we do have some initial reports of damage back near, was it Letts that it was near?
Yeah, at least power lines down. So that was the official report that we had. We had some unconfirmed report of maybe a little bit of damage to a structure somewhere in that area, but not confirmed yet for sure.
Yeah, so certainly details that over time, and as the National Weather Service is able to get out and take a look at the survey the damage, we'll get a better idea on what exactly happened, and if it was a tornado, exactly how strong it was. That would likely happen tomorrow or the day after. Again, once the National Weather Service can get out, take a look at the damage, and kind of get an idea of exactly what happened as the storm moved through. But still, radar indicated rotation, that does mean that the storm has not recently produced confirmed tornado, or a confirmed tornado, whether that would be radar confirmation or through a sighting, but it is still rotating. Again, you can see that hook echo, or that little appendage at the south end of the storm, kind of tracking right along the southern border of that warning right now. That is why that tornado warning's been issued. So still a storm that you're going to want to really make sure that you're taking seriously and getting out of the way of it as it continues to track off into Illinois. If you know anyone near Eliza or Buffalo Prairie, you're going to want to make sure that you are getting in touch with them, letting them know that, hey, there is a tornado warned storm headed their direction. They're not currently in the warning, but still, as this storm continues to track off in that direction, certainly something that you'll want to make sure you're being aware of. Should be getting towards Buffalo Prairie by the time we get to about 8:38.
Yep, and that moves out of our area of concern, which is good news. At this point, the threat for additional tornadic activity in the TV9 viewing area looks pretty slim. Can't rule out more storms. I'll go ahead and turn on lightning tracker and show you that those cells in central Iowa producing lightning got a new cell that just popped up recently in portions of Hardin County, and that will be tracking off to the northeast too. But notice that stuff that was producing lightning in Butler and Franklin counties up in northwest portions of the viewing area, how it has diminished in the past hour as it gets farther to the northeast. So there is a limit to how things are going to go here in terms of how much severe weather activity we're going to see. But again, just because we've had some reports back here in central Iowa of these storms producing potentially a little bit of quarter-sized hail or a little bit bigger, can't fully rule it out yet for another couple hours, even in areas that have now since seen a pretty good break. Anywhere back this direction, we could see some of those storms moving in. Could even approach the Cedar Rapids area as we get later into the evening. However, I'm going to speak for AJ. Since the severe weather has really started to move out of the area, even in Cedar County, where the warning still continues for another half an hour or 25 minutes technically, I'm expecting conditions to continue to improve in that area. And so I think we're going to take a little pause, get our bearings, and we're going to keep the stream going for now and leave you with some information, some radar loops and some more data. But we are going to take a little bit of a break, and if conditions warrant, we are going to join you back here and give you more information. Otherwise, hopefully, conditions don't warrant, and we can shut the stream down and call it a night. So for meteorologist Corey Thompson, who is myself,
I'm AJ Rickman, also myself. Thank you so much for tuning into our streaming as we've continued to track these storms across eastern Iowa. We hope you have a good night, a safe night, and of course we'll keep you up to date with the latest as any new storm warnings get issued.
Yep, absolutely.
So stay with your trusted local news source, KCRG TV 9.
Yes, I can. Can you hear me? Okay. I'm meteorologist Corey Thompson here in the First Alert Weather Lab with an update on a severe thunderstorm warning that's been issued for portions of Hardin, Grundy, northern Marshall, and the far northwest corner of Tama County. This goes until 9:45 this evening. There are a couple of storm cells moving out of central Iowa that have been producing some large hail. That is the primary threat here. Quarter-sized hail is what this warning is issued for, and it goes again for another 43 minutes. Moving to the northeast at about 40 miles per hour, so we'll take you through this warning. It affects areas near New Providence at about 9:03, Eldora closer to 9:07, Union at about 9:13, round toward Grundy Center Municipal Airport at 9:30, and Grundy Center itself closer to 9:37. If you're in the path of the storm, expect the potential for hail to be falling along with torrential downpours, and some frequent lightning has been observed with the storm too. Just a heads up to folks down to the south, there's that cell moving out of Story County approaching Marshall County. That involves a severe thunderstorm warning for the far western portion of the county. Will, if it holds its strength together, potentially be extended toward Marshalltown and perhaps a little bit farther down Highway 30. The tornado watch has largely been trimmed back for much of eastern Iowa, but there are storms in central Iowa that could be moving into parts of eastern Iowa. As we get later into the evening, it's likely that these storms will continue to lose their punch. However, we will be tracking them until then. So this new severe thunderstorm warning goes till 9:45 for portions of Grundy, Hardin, Marshall, and Tama counties for that threat for quarter-sized hail. We'll be covering these storms on our streaming platforms as we look ahead, just to keep you folks informed. But until conditions warrant, we'll send you back to regular programming. Stay with your trusted local news and weather source, KCRG TV 9. I can get them. Yep, thank you. All right, if you are still with us on our live stream, either on YouTube or through the KCRG streaming app or the KCRG.com stream, we are still here with you. We've been monitoring these storms here in the First Alert Weather Lab over the past 30 to 45 minutes, ever since we kind of gave a break and got prepared for the rest of our work for this evening. It's been a bit of a busy day, but we are here still and keeping a close eye on what's going on. So we do have that severe thunderstorm warning that we just talked about. You heard us join both folks on KCRG TV 9 as well as here on the stream. And it's for portions of Grundy, Hardin, Marshall, and Tama counties. This is that storm cell. It's kind of moving a little bit northeasterly compared to the one to its south, which is moving more of a due east in nature. Both of these storms have the potential to produce some large hail. We have seen reports of that as they track off to the northeast. So let's pinpoint first the warning that we've been talking about. This storm, at this point, again, hail would be the primary threat. This storm, however, has shown some signs of weakening within the past 30 minutes. I would say it went from a storm that was pretty evidently producing some hail near and north of Ames, south of Gilbert in central Iowa, but now it's lost a little bit of its intensity. Now the storm to the south has gone through a similar evolution, but perhaps by not as sharp of a degree, that we are seeing less of a decrease in intensity in that one. And so it's a little bit of a different story depending on exactly which storm you're looking at. But this one, as it tracks off to the northeast, will have that potential to produce some larger hail. So let's go ahead and put another storm track on it. We just did that moments ago, but we do want to keep you informed as we look through the next 45 minutes or so. Eldora, again, it's approaching your area at about 9:13. Witten at closer to 9:20. Miller Memorial Park, so if you know where that's at and you live nearby, that is when the storm will be there closer to 9:26. Holland at about 9:38, and Grundy Center, you are Yes, included in this warning, and that goes until 9:40. That's when that storm will be approaching you. Now, these storms are really taking advantage of what's left of the energy in these storms, or what's left in the energy available for these storms. We don't have a ton left. However, they are plenty strong at this point, and they've been fairly persistent. Let's actually go back and put on a loop for the last 3 hours and watch how they have sort of evolved and moved in tandem. In fact, they started as one storm and split into two. That's not an uncommon thing given correct atmospheric conditions. And that is something that happened today, had those storms splitting, and so both have the potential to produce some hail. That southerly one, the National Weather Service just updated their warning, goes into portions of western Marshall County, and that includes now the potential for golf ball sized hail. That's because there was a report south of Nevada, which is right along Highway 30, of some golf ball sized hail. So that storm certainly still is packing a bit of a punch to it. And so that's why that warning continues there. We do only have the 2 warnings, though, in effect right now for any portion of the TV9 viewing area, and it's right along the western fringe and western counties of the TV9 viewing area. You can see the primary one that we're talking about here is the Grundy, Hardin, Marshall, and Tama. But if you live in or near Marshalltown, certainly don't want you to sleep on that one, too, as it will be moving east right along Highway 30. Yeah, really taking aim toward Colo, State Center, Marshalltown, all about to see some of that potential hail as it moves closer. Let's go ahead and take a look at Hail Tracker. See what we got going on here in terms of estimated hail size, and we'll actually put on our hail path. Does look like the storm that was near Ames, that has weakened a little bit in terms of its biggest hail. The one to the south, again, showing up on Hail Tracker as not producing very large hail, but of course we had that report of golf ball sized hail. So we know at least it has been producing hail near Nevada, which is over in Story County. If we put it just a little bit closer, you can see Nevada is between Ames and State Center, right along Highway 30. The highway bypasses the city there, but moving toward portions of western Marshall County. Put the more traditional look on here, and you can see that there are 2 areas of storm activity, and they are tracking to the northeast. We'll put the loop on here again, show you what's taking place. This is probably going to be it in terms of severe weather, although we can't fully rule out another one of these isolated storms perhaps strengthening just a little bit more. And you can see that we've got a couple more storm cells up here into portions of Butler, moving into Bremer County. But they don't look as intense. Just kind of looking at some of the information we have on these storms. No reports, no warnings for those storms, but they are there. They are strong, but likely not severe. These storms are all producing a good amount of lightning, too. This will load here in just a second. Bear with me. Tracking eastward, that area of lightning, both storms producing some notable lightning. Storms off to the north not producing as much, but you'll see some lightning flashes up that direction too. Now, it's not the only part of eastern Iowa that's dealt with storms tonight. Many areas have seen at least some rain. Some areas have seen a lot of rain, and that's why we have a handful of flash flood warnings in effect for eastern and northeastern Iowa. You can see that this includes portions of Dubuque, Jones, Jackson, and Lynn County, southeastern Delaware County too, far southern Buchanan County. But the rest of Delaware County and Buchanan County have a different flash flood warning. This all carries on for at least another couple hours in every case. You can see there's one for Benton County as well. These are all listed as radar indicated, and this one goes until midnight for Benton County. No new precipitation of really large substance is expected within these warnings. And there haven't been any additional reports or updates from the National Weather Service about any sort of strong reports of flooding, very obvious reports. However, just because of the amount of rain that moved through earlier, that's why they've gone ahead and done that. If we go ahead and put precipitation for the last 24 hours, and I'm actually going to overlay those flash flood warnings again so we can see where we're talking about. You can see that parts of the area have received quite a bit of rain. I'm going to take those warnings off because that's what triggers that pop-up there. 3 to 4 inches of rain, potentially, based on radar indication. Now, some of this was likely hail as it fell because radar can't detect very easily the difference between the two. But you can see just broad swaths of 1 to 2 to 3 inches of rain. And so any additional rainfall certainly would be troublesome for many areas, even down toward the Cedar Rapids area. Radar indicated totals of around 2 inches. And so we've seen very, very hefty rain in many of these areas. Not going to add a whole bunch more, though. That is the good news as we go later into the night, and then we get a totally dry day on Thursday. But in general, still keeping an eye on that. So we've got 2 warnings. Severe thunderstorm warning for Marshall County, as well as Hardin, Grundy, northwestern Tama County. They go for various time lengths here. And then we've also got the storm that's headed closer to Marshalltown. That one is going until 9:30 for that golf ball sized hail potential. So those storms will continue moving off at about 35 to 40 miles per hour and taking their potential severe weather with them. Going to take a little bit of a break here again. We're going to keep an eye on these storms. Right now, again, just producing that quarter-sized hail or maybe a little bit larger. Tornado risk with these storms is little to zero. In fact, it would be very close to zero. They are very much on the cooler, more stable side of the storm system, but enough energy still exists in the atmosphere that we've had some of those stronger storms develop. So we're going to watch it. We're going to track it here in the First Alert Weather Lab again, continuing as we go forward. I will be back if conditions warrant or if new warnings are issued. You'll hear us pop in as well. So stay here with us. We'll keep you informed and keep you safe. All right, folks, given that there are no severe thunderstorm warnings in effect across any portion of the TV9 viewing area at this point, and we're not expecting new warnings to be issued, we're going to go ahead and shut down the stream for the night. Thank you for joining us throughout the day, throughout the last few days on these streams and through our continuous coverage on KCRG TV9 as well. We very much welcome your viewership and thank you for it. We are nothing without you. And we know that you have a lot of options on the internet, on TV, online, on your phone, all sorts of places you can get your weather information, so it really does mean a lot that you get it from us. We will be, of course, tracking things through the night, even though the severe weather threat has pretty much come to an end. But we'll be back as we look ahead toward Friday, our next first alert day, when storms are looking fairly likely again. Have a good night and stay safe.